Hello everyone, welcome to Land of Enchantment Living. My name is Maria. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, thank you. Welcome to my DIY all things apple fall crafting video. This first project is an antique vintage decorative apple butter jar. For this project, you will need a glass jar. I believe this one was an old spaghetti jar, some coffee filters, some decorative fabric. I will be using some Dollar Tree fabric along with some muslin fabric that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I will show you guys later on in the video how I use that. And you will also need some Mod Podge. I start by ironing my filters to get rid of the wrinkles, and then I cut them down to almost like a square shape. I'll apply my filters to the glass using some matte Mod Podge. I do apply 2 layers of filters. Once those 2 layers are dry, I seal them with some Mod Podge and let them dry completely before moving on to the next step. And I forgot to mention that I do cut out a circle and attach that to the bottom of the jar, giving the jar a nice clean finished look.
There's a new day that will come again.
And here is the jar completely dry and sealed with the 2 layers of coffee filters. Next, I'm going to take my Dollar Tree fabric, iron it out using my Cricut mini press. Then I will take a Dollar Tree lemon bowl, using it as a stencil to trace a circle on the fabric. Then I will cut the circle out. This circle will be used to cover the opening of the jar.
The rain. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this.
To attach the fabric to the jar, I will be using some Mod Podge. I brush a good amount on the rim, then place my fabric on top and start smoothing the fabric down, creating little creases as I go, making sure I cover the coffee filter edges that are visible at the top of the jar because I do not want those to be visible. And then I will trim down the fabric just a little and then seal the fabric with some Mod Podge. This will stiffen up the fabric and it also gives it kind of like a shiny look. I will then set the jar aside to dry completely.
There's a new day to get you through your struggles. I will always think of you and me. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this. If you try to get some sleep.
And here is the apple butter label I will be using for the jar. I made this on Canva, printed it out on some muslin fabric, and I love how it turned out. Let me show you how I made it. Keep this next step in mind because I will be repeating this process in our next project. The first step is ironing out your fabric. Once you have your fabric ironed out, you'll take a piece of copy paper, the same paper you use to print any document out, and use it as a stencil to trace and cut out the piece of muslin fabric and a piece of the freezer paper. Now that the fabric and piece of freezer paper are cut down to size, and in order to run the fabric through your printer, it needs to be stiff and thicker. You'll take the freezer paper, place the fabric on the glossy side, and then iron it down. Now the fabric is ready to run through the printer. Now that the image is printed on the fabric, I will seal it using a spray matte acrylic sealer so the ink doesn't smudge. I recommend doing this step outside because the fumes are pretty strong, at least I think so. I will then cut my fabric down to a size that will look good on the jar. And to give the label an aged look, I will rub on some distress ink in the color walnut, applying it all around the edges, then attach it to the jar, making sure it's centered using some Mod Podge.
If I posted a letter, is it maybe because I never knew quite where I was, and suddenly you told me, baby, you're lost, but I am too. Whatever the cost, we'll make it through.
And here you're going to see me remove the freezer paper from the back of the fabric.
If you are not the one for me, then tell me now what I could do.
And here's a look at how the jar is looking like so far. Next, I'll apply some coffee stain to the jar. I want to add the stain to the filters. I will not be applying any of the stain onto the fabric. This will give the jar an aged antique look. I will then set the jar aside to dry completely. This coffee stain is so easy to make. To make this stain, all you need is half a cup of instant coffee, 1 cup of warm water, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. I place everything in this mason jar, give it a good shake, and let it sit for about an hour before I use it. There's a lot of coffee stain recipes out there, and this is the one I went with, and I have been using it a lot lately. And I have to say, guys, this coffee stain smells really, really good.
You're the only one for me, and I'm the only one for you.
Now for the finishing touches. I will be using some raffia. I did rub some distress ink on in the color walnut to give it an aged look, some coffee stain lace from the Goodwill bins, and some reindeer moss. I did seal the moss with some of the spray sealer. I'll wrap the raffia around the top of the jar, making a simple tie without a bow, and repeat the process using the lace. I'll shorten the raffia down just a little, then trim down the moss, position it where I want it, and attach the moss using a little bit of hot glue.
You believe it too, that you're the only one for me, and I'm the only one for you. If I wrote you a song, if I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper.
I wanted to add a little color to the apple, and so I rubbed on a little bit of this red ink along with a hint of the distress ink in the color walnut. And for our final step, I will be taking my distress ink in the color walnut and rubbing it around the jar, avoiding the fabric label, bringing out all of the textures of the coffee filters.
Hey, I heard you want to leave this place where we grew up. This old town just put.
And here is the finished homemade apple butter jar. I love creating crafts that look antique and vintage looking, so I am loving how this little jar turned out. If you guys would like to make this jar at home, kind of making it your own, I will be leaving a free printable in my description box below of this image that I created on Canva. And if you guys do make a jar like this or any other craft, make sure to tag me on Instagram showing me all of your guys's beautiful crafts that you have made at home using this design.
Leave a mark in our marks to turn to memories. River's gonna cry when you're gone, gone, gone.
For our second project, I will be making an apple cider donut sack. For this project, you will need muslin fabric, some decorative fabric, and some pillow stuffing. I printed out the image on the muslin fabric and cut it down to the size I wanted. Remember the printing on fabric steps from our first project? I just repeated that whole process with this image, except I moved the image towards the bottom because we will be tying the top and I needed that extra fabric on the top so I didn't take away from this image. I'm taking this fabric from Dollar Tree and ironing it out with my Cricut mini press. Then taking my apple cider muslin fabric sheet, using it as a stencil, tracing around it, then cutting the fabric out.
Those trees, 12 years old, feel the wind and watch the river run.
And here you're going to see me remove the freezer paper from the back of the fabric. I will then place the two pieces of fabric with the right sides facing in and use my hot glue to attach them together, applying a little glue at a time all around the edges. I will leave the entire top open, flip the sack inside out, and then fill it with the pillow stuffing.
Gone, 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 gone. River's gonna cry when you're. River's gonna cry when you're. River's gonna cry when you're gone. It's gonna cry, it's gonna cry. River's gonna cry when you're gone. It's gonna cry, it's gonna cry.
Next, I will gather the fabric and using some twine, I'll wrap it around the top, closing the opening off by tying a really tight knot. Then I will age the fabric with the distress ink in the color walnut. And I have to say, guys, I think this has to be my most favorite color to use. To finish this little sack, I'm going to be tying some raffia to the top, making a little bow. And I did rub on some of the distress ink to the raffia, giving it an aged look. I will then trim the raffia down because I don't want the strands to be too long.
Appalachian sunrise meets my skin. Even with my eyes still closed, I can feel it coming in. Golden, golden, I'll follow only golden, 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 golden things. Mountain laurel high fives for miles in spring. Rainbow trout and a hummingbird.
And here's our finished project. Now this little sack reads apple cider donut mix, premium quality since 1862. Bring the farm stand to your kitchen. And I am loving creating all of these antique looking crafts by simply printing out these images on fabric. I do have a few projects in mind for Thanksgiving, so I hope I'm able to share those with you guys soon. And I will also be leaving this design as a free printable in my description box below for you guys.
Golden, golden things.
For our third project, we will be making some fabric apples. I've had these fake apples for sale at my vendor booth for quite some time and they haven't sold, so I thought I would bring them home and give them a little makeover. For this project, you will need some fake apples, some decorative fabric. I got this fabric at Hobby Lobby. It was on clearance for $2 a yard and I only got half a yard, so I only paid $1, which I think was a really good deal. some sticks. I got mine from my pine trees outside, some green felt fabric, and some hot glue. I start by removing the stems from all the apples and then taking my X-Acto knife and making the holes on the top of the apples a little larger in order to stuff some of the fabric into that opening.
Gold string, gold words, gold anything, golden. I follow only golden.
I went ahead and cut my fabric into some squares. I'll add some hot glue to the bottom of the apple, then place it down onto the fabric and smooth the fabric out to get a good hold. Next, I'll grab a corner of the fabric, fold it in just a little, then bring the fabric up and over the apple and stuffing the fabric into the hole, securing the fabric in place with some hot glue. I'll repeat this step until I have all the fabric wrapped around the entire apple. If you see that you have a little too much fabric, trim the excess off, then stuff it into the hole, securing the fabric in place with some hot glue.
Stronger than what you think, and I know it's hard. Yeah, I know it's rough, but we'll make it through, and I'll back you up. Wherever you're going, I'm going to. I'll follow you through the.
Now it's time to attach the stems. I'm going to take the sticks, cut them down to a shorter length, then simply hot glue them to the hole on top of the apple. I'll be using the thinner sticks for the smaller apples and the thicker sticks for the larger ones.
You tell me you're nervous. You say
To make some leaves, I freehanded a leaf shape on some green felt fabric, cut them out, adding a tiny bit of hot glue to one end of the leaf, creating a little fold, then attaching the leaves to the apple stems using some hot glue.
and if it all falls, if it
And the final step to this project is rubbing some Distress ink in the color walnut to the leaves.
will fix these mistakes.
And here's our finished fabric apples. I think they turned out so cute, and I think all of these crafts that I've created so far pair nicely together. You guys can make some beautiful rustic looking vintage style vignettes in your kitchens using these crafts. Let me know what you guys think of this project in the comment box below.
Honey, I'm with you through life and to death.
For our fourth and final project, I will be making what I call an autumn apple orchard wreath. For this project, you will need a grapevine wreath. I got mine at the Goodwill bins. Some greenery picks. I got all of mine at the Dollar Tree. Some pine cones, also from the Goodwill bins. And of course, some apples. I will be using some dried apples that I made using my dehydrator for this project. You will also need some wire to attach the greenery and some hot glue. And here's a shot of the apples after I had them sliced and ready for the dehydrator. I start by cutting my picks with my wire cutters. To attach them, I will be sticking the ends into the wreath, then securing them down with the wire. I start with the larger greenery picks as my fillers, and then moving on to the smaller ones. I really wanted this wreath to look very earthy and rustic, so I tried picking colors that were a little darker with hints of reds and browns. And here I am attaching the picks to the wreath using the wire, and I found that this process was taking way too long, so I decided to go ahead and switch this up by using my hot glue to attach all the picks. I was a little worried about using hot glue because I thought it would be visible, but I did a pretty good job at hiding it.
You will be drinking your coffee with me. You run your fingers through your hair. Something inside begins to flare. Now you're doing it again. I close my eyes and count to 10.
Once I have my greenery fillers in place, I'll hot glue my pine cones and apples down. You want to be super careful with the dried apples because you don't want them cracking on you.
I will be starring in your movie. Someday you will be drinking your coffee with me.
Now I was thinking of adding a bow to the wreath, but I thought it would take away from the earthy, organic, rustic look I was going for. I finished this wreath off by adding the little red flowers all around.
But if you could be the one I need more, so what am I waiting for? Someday I will see more than just your beauty. Someday I will be starring in your movie.
And here's our finished project. I have to say, guys, this has to be my most favorite project from this entire video, and I really think it turned out way better than I expected. Let me know what you guys think of this project in the comment box below.
Come to the water where you will find peace. Take a step.
So this all things Apple fall crafting video for 2024 is coming to an end, and I had so much fun making these projects. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel and hit that notification button. You do not want to miss any of my upcoming videos. I have some really fun bake videos coming out soon, so you definitely do not want to miss those. Don't forget to leave me a comment. I love chatting with all of you guys, and let me know which craft you guys liked the most. And I will see you guys next time in the next video. Bye.
I will find. Oh, you're broken and you're shattered at the point of no return. You pick up the pieces and you let the bridges burn. So